The place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to the Living Free podcast, where I'm back on my actual computer with my actual mic. So we're going to have decent audio today. And Chris and Tina Clark, who are with me today, also have good audio. So we're going to have a great conversation. This is the podcast where we talk about building a life without limits. And today is Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. I am wearing a special operations equipment t-shirt that does not say tax slave. You know why? Because today is the first day this year I'm earning money that goes into my pocket instead of to taxes. So we are finally out of the tax slave status for the year. And I know tax day was yesterday for everybody. So hopefully you made it through that time. My heart was with you yesterday as you rushed to get your taxes in on time. I do want to talk about our featured event of today's show, and that's the Exit and Build Land Summit, which will be in May at Polyface Farms. I'll be speaking there about building revenue streams on your homestead. Plus, I get to hang out with Joel Salatin, and you could too. Just go to exitandbuildlandsummit.com and grab a ticket if you want to go check that out. I'm sure they have digital passes as well, although not 100% sure because the internet out there is not all that great. In fact, my advice if you're driving to Polyface Farm is to bring a printout of the map or your road atlas, because your GPS is going to run out on your way out of there. You'll get there, but then you're going to hop in your car and be like, hey, get me back to civilization. And it's going to say, sorry, not happening. Hello, Grumpy and Life Done Free. Welcome to the live stream. The other thing I want to do is thank two sponsors today. The first sponsor of today's show is Above Phone. Above Phone gives you an option to de-Googleify your life and cut out spying. Check that out at abovephone.com. I'll have a link in the show notes. And if you use the coupon code LiveFreeTN, you get $50 off a device. Our second sponsor of today's show is very important. It's Hollow Roast Coffee. This is how we keep ourselves caffeinated, right? That's my business. I roast all orders to order. You can check that out at hollowroast.com. Today is a Wednesday interview show, and we're going to talk with Chris and Tina about something really cool they did. They looked around their homes, found a resource that most people wouldn't realize was a resource, and have turned that into a business that is promoting health for many people. So they're not just developing revenue on their homestead, but they're also helping us stay healthier. So with that, I want to say, Chris and Tina, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Thank you for having us, Nicole.
So who or what is a Chris and Tina Clark, and where did you start out, and how did you end up on a homestead? Let's just start there.
Okay, well, this is Chris and I'm Tina, and he is a Yankee and I'm a Southern Belle.
Got here as quick as I could.
And his background is military. He did 23 years. He's a retired disabled vet. And my background is education. We actually met each other. He was my boss at my job. And I harassed him every day, asking him out. And he would not go out with me for 3 weeks. Finally, I got him to say yes. And he fell in love. And we got married 3 months later, and we've been together for 28 years next month, or month after next. And we jokingly say all the time that we're still on our honeymoon, because we truly are the soulmates and love of each other's lives, which makes life fun in itself. But now, because of what we're doing, we get to be together and work together every day and do everything together. And so that's who we are in a nutshell.
Yeah, and as far for getting started in homesteading, career in the military doesn't really preclude one toward naturally just moving to homesteading, right? We moved all around. I think we moved 7 times in a 9-year window at one point. But what we realized is we spent my whole career defending freedom, but not really experiencing it. So it became time to experience that for ourselves. Tina, I grew up in kind of suburbia USA. Tina didn't. She grew up in a very rural area on a farm. And I had always been attracted to a more rural lifestyle, but I didn't realize all the things that would come with it that turned out to be great positives, right? So I think it was 2015 when we first ditched the suburbs and went ahead and moved out to a log cabin in the middle of nowhere and started with the gateway drug. We got chickens. and took off on homesteading from there, and have just continuously built up since 2015. Eventually, we bought the place we're in now, which was just raw land when we bought it. So we built everything out here.
And we did not buy it with the intention of homesteading.
No, we actually bought it for another form of freedom that we experienced called the Second Amendment. We bought it actually for a gun range, and built a gun range out here. And we had one gun range built, and I was taking Tina for a walk where we were going to build another range out here on the land. And she sat underneath a persimmon tree.
Well, he said, I think I want to build a house out here.
Mhm.
And he said, let me show you where I want to build it. And I said, okay. And so we went for a walk, and I sat down under a persimmon tree, and I started crying. And he's like, what is wrong? And I said, this is where we're supposed to have build our house, not where you want to build it. And I don't know how to tell you that without being like some nagging, awful, wife. And because I really feel like this is where God's peace is, and this is where we're supposed to build our house. In connection to my childhood, my grandmother used to make us persimmon pudding, and so persimmons brought me back to her. And anyway, so he's like, oh no, this is where our house goes. And so that's where we built our house. And we built our house ourselves. We did it all. We were our own contractors. We did it, which is a whole nother freedom that we experienced, not having to answer to anybody to build our own house. And
Yep. So on this property, we actually discovered as we moved our other animals out here, and chickens, goats at the time too. Now we've increased our homestead. It's pretty significant. We raise or grow about 80% of our own food. If we could just figure out coffee, chocolate, and citrus, we'd be 100%, I think. But
I know a lady who trades coffee to other homesteaders. So.
there you go.
So what we decided to do was, after we built our house out here and we had all our animals out here, the property that we discovered back when we were buying the property, we found it had a spring. But okay, so it has a spring. A spring is a broad term, right? What's a spring mean? Everybody gets a different image in their head.
Yeah, we had no idea when we bought the property. I mean, we knew having water on our property was good. We had no idea. We didn't know the history of our spring. We didn't know how good that was going to be for us or anybody. We had no idea when we bought it, the level that spring meant for us.
Yep. So as it turns out, our spring is the largest registered spring in the county. There's all these springs everywhere, but our spring puts out over 600 gallons a minute of 52-degree water, and it does it year round. And it comes out with force at a super cold temperature. And as soon as it comes out, it looks like God struck a rock and broke a fire hydrant or two off behind it. It actually flows out at about twice the rate of a fire hydrant. And so that creates an instant little creek that would run. And so we would go down there in the summertime, and kids would go down there and they'd play in water. It's only, ankle bone deep for them. And in about 15 minutes, they'll come over to show us a crawfish or something, and their hands are shaking because their lips are blue because the water's so cold. And we're just like, oh, that's fun. And we have good water for our animals. And we've always just piped the water up the hill for our animals and did stuff like that. When we built our house, we decided, okay, well, we're going to use this spring. It's this wonderful source of water. And then we got it tested. And some of the people who tested it at a lab here in Tennessee actually said, we spend our life testing water, trying to figure out ways to dissolve minerals into water better so that it doesn't come out when you filter it. We cannot create water as good as you have this water coming out. We can't make it. And this is what we do for a living, and we can't do this. This is just really good water. So we thought, okay, well, that's nice to know. We continued to drink our water. We
threw around the idea of bottling it one day.
Maybe one day we'll bottle it, and people would come over for dinner. We'd pour our tap water straight into glass bottles, set them out on the dinner table, and everybody would come like, wow, this.
And then they started bringing 5-gallon jugs to fill up at our house. They'd come in and they go, hey, can we fill up this jug with your water because it's so good, and take it home? Sure, go ahead.
And then I think all the travel things started to lift, and we started going on trips again and something like that. And we found we were water snobs, not on purpose and not with an attitude, but we found it very difficult to drink other waters that we found. And we just could never put our finger on it. And then, we decided we would go ahead and get involved more in the water business and take a look at it. And one thing led to another. And then about a year and a half ago, we were at a dance convention with our daughter, and we couldn't go into the little classes. So we made a date weekend out of it to catch up. And we decided we would sit there in the lobbies of the hotel and everything. It was at Opryland, so it's a great place to be stuck for the weekend. And so we sat there on a cocktail napkin and we decided to sketch out some ideas of what we would do if we were going to turn this spring into an actual business plan.
That napkin quickly got full. We had to go find one of their overpriced stores and buy a notebook so that we could write down everything we were coming up with. And that's how our water company was born.
Mm-hmm. And so we look at it as, okay, what do we want to make? If we wanted to create some freedom, I was already my own boss after retiring from the military, working in another industry, but now it was time to do something together and to do this industry. And everybody wants, I think the homesteaders out there, we all want a big portion of freedom, right? We want all of it. We want food freedom and food security. We want economic security. We want physical security. We want all the things that come with it and all those freedoms. And while we all know in the homestead community that that's harder work, the reward is so worth it.
Mhm.
So we decided, how can we do that? And I think we tried to, if we could just take our homestead and make it a net zero at the end of the year, maybe that'd be good, right? Sell beef to pay for our hay or our process of collecting our hay. Sell enough eggs to buy chicken feed. Do something like that, right? If we could just get it at net zero for the year, that'd be great. Never thought about turning it into a business until, like you said, we found that our water made a really good income. And what could we do, especially when we have an infinite supply and it's just flowing downstream? And
It's funny
then,
how when people come over and they really like a thing about your homestead over and over and over, that it's like that's the indication of where you may want to concentrate on
Mhm.
transforming your experience from subsistence living
Mhm.
to making a profit. And I really think, like, what I love about your story is you realized that you were fighting for freedom, but you didn't have freedom in society. You saw immediately that the way society is structured keeps us enslaved in different ways. And
Mhm.
so your initial thing was like, well, let's get out of town and figure that out. And then you found a resource to bring income into your home, which is beyond just assistance living. And I think sometimes in the homesteading network, there's a lot of critiques of people, quote unquote, making a profit. But
Mhm.
how can
hmm,
we be truly free if we're not financially sustainable and
correct.
not
And
encouraging
I
each
always
other to be
think,
financially sustainable?
yeah, and why not be happy for somebody if they found a way to
Like
Walmart
Tag
makes
is
a
happy for
profit.
you guys. Look,
I
what
know,
a
I
great
know. I saw
resource.
that.
Happy for
I saw
you.
that, and I wanted to say hi, Tag, but I didn't know if it was okay. So hi,
It's
Tag.
totally okay. Yeah.
Okay.
They're here.
Um.
You can acknowledge our friends.
Okay.
Pip and I's joined me at 12 in the morning, I believe, the other night while I was pulling a
Yeah.
lamb.
Yeah.
But Walmart makes a profit. The all the little mom and pop, everybody makes a profit. Why can't we just be happy for people when they figure out a way to sustain themselves and prosper?
I think it's more than prosper for us too. One of the things that we live in a county that is a little bit economically depressed.
Mm.
So our goal is to increase the economic vitality of this whole county in our area. Maybe we can offer hope. You can have a career and not have to leave your county. It doesn't require this massive college degree to come work for us.
Mm.
Our goal is to make the bottling headquarters actually right here in the county. And we, in doing so, we want to lift all ships. We want to be able to contribute to the county financially. We want to be able to do it through jobs, through hope, through all these things. Some of the people that work for us now that also are residents of this county, their kids are so excited to take this to school every day. And there's pride in that. Like, my dad bottles this.
Yeah.
My dad works at this place. And even more so with our, hydration drinks and everything else. So it's really neat to watch what God can do through this business, more than just make a profit, right? Anybody can make a profit. Go do something, make a profit. Make widgets, make a profit. But what we're doing contributes, I think, not just to the economic prosperity and to the freedom, but there's an old expression that says, when you're healthy, you have tons of dreams and wishes. When you're unhealthy, you have one wish: get healthy, right? And so I think what the nice part about homesteading for us is we've also taken back our health freedom just through our diet and natural exercise that comes through homesteading. And we're not eating all this processed meat. We're not eating stuff that has dye injected into it. We're not eating stuff sprayed with folic acid. We're not eating all these things that could kill us. And we're doing it in ways, we've learned. You were talking earlier about Joel Salatin. Can't tell you how many times the Audible book is just playing in our house. And it's like, come on, folks, that ain't normal, And I'll never forget a line that he uses in that where he says, if your food has a mascot, it's probably not food. Right. And so we're actually getting rid of that with our hydration drink. We call it Lion. Our food has a mascot, but it's actually healthy and it's a healthy thing. So we're giving kids a healthy mascot to go with for their beverage choices, and just things like that. As we take back our freedom of our own health, how can we then take that and spread that out to the community too of all these people? I think, there's a large part of the people here on your podcast, of your audience who, like us, probably don't trust the government and big pharma to have your best interest in mind, nor do we really trust big food, right? The commercial food industry, we know you can have a wonderful product, but out of greed want to make just a little bit more of a margin. So now we're going to get rid of all the natural things that used to be in it, and we're going to put red dye 40 and all those other chemicals into it. There was a meme we saw a little while ago that was by, Gatorade will be fine. I used to drink it as a kid, and it showed the glass bottle of Gatorade from the 1970s. It had water, sugar, lime juice, and potassium.
Salt. Probably
Yeah, and salt,
or
right? And that
something,
was
yeah.
it. And then you see the modern day one, and you can't even pronounce
It's
half the
like,
stuff on it. Yeah, and you're like, okay, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
What was wrong? Why did we turn from that as a beverage industry? Why did we have to compromise the ingredients just to ink out 2 or 3 cents more profit per bottle when you're doing fine? So I think as we look at our water company, that's part of the major thing too, is what if we can help restore the freedom of people's health? That will give them the independence to do the things that they need to do to be freer beings themselves.
Okay, I want to read this comment from Grumpy Acres. Preach it, Chris. A friend told me Joel Salatin's subliminal message to him was use your land to make a profit and then change the community by employing people to uplift them, which he's totally done at Polyface. Like, I looked at turning sheep into a profit, and the number of sheep I need to raise to do that was not what I want to do when I grow up. So, so finding a resource like this, like I want my super bougie regeneratively raised sheep. That's it. And it's a small thing. It's not my profit center. The coffee is my profit center. So
yeah,
that is what it is.
He just mentioned the community too and lifting them up. And one of the things, we have lots of plans for our bottling facility that we're going to build here in Hickman County, and including, book clubs to help them, prosper themselves and their families, and educate themselves. And we want to help them learn to budget and learn to take care of their finances. And we have a massive opioid problem here in the county that we live in, and we want to give them a purpose, something that they can be, like you mentioned, the pride, they can stand behind it. And one of the plans that we have is to build a small homeschool room into the bottling facility, so that if they want to homeschool, we'll have a proctor there and their kids can be there and they can check on them throughout the day. And just encourage people to be able to have that freedom.
And that's just it. They have to work to make a living. Not everybody's the entrepreneur. We get it. And even us as entrepreneurs, we still homeschool our kids, but we have the freedom to do that. But if you have a job, most of the time you don't have the freedom to do that, or you have to figure out challenging ways, or you're more detached. No, our job is to create opportunities for freedom for the people that work for us, as well as the community, by doing that.
And a lot of time when we're building businesses like this, the habit is to go to the system that works somewhere else and copy that. So setting up a situation where there's some flexibility for your employees is like reimagining how a community-based business can work. Something a friend of mine did, I'm just going to share this with you, is he got rid of all vacation. And he said, this is the job you do for the year. And figure out how to do that. And if you can take a 6 months vacation, go for it. If you're sick, don't come. We're not going to track hours and all of that this way. This is how much you get paid. This is the output we expect. and you're free to do what you want with that. And
Wow.
I thought, well, that's an interest, like that doesn't work for every job and every situation, but I think that's, that's a really good one. And then what Joel Salatin does with his per piece production payment rather than hourly payment, like he
Right.
figured out what processing a chicken pays per chicken. Done.
Right. And that's just it. That's with us too. We realize that if we can we're not big fans of the processes that exist that have led us to the society that creates further entrapment and enslavement. We are fans of taking a sledgehammer to that model and taking it and just smashing it to pieces. Yes. Because that's ultimately what it is. We're not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We're going to boil it down to what it is. What jobs should actually be. They should be an opportunity so that you can make a living, get the things you need without having to sacrifice your freedoms, your soul, your time, or all those other
For your
things to go
children
do
and
it.
your family.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the business model that we grew up in, where mom and dad went to work, took off. After school, you had a key around your neck. You let yourself in the house. You did whatever till mom and dad came home. They were too exhausted to do anything. Maybe you got together and had some form of dinner. Then you were told to do your homework and maybe do something else, go to bed, wake up, wash, rinse, repeat. You lived for weekends, which was now almost like a reintroduction to your family. That's not the way God intended us to live our lives, right? As families, as husbands and wives, it's not. So whatever we can do to help fix that, and now that we've been given the resource of a company to be able to do it with, we're just so much excitement in bringing that into the community.
So let's talk about your company a little bit. I think you had a kind of an uphill battle getting the water approved, right? Let's talk about that. And then I'd love to know, like, what's it look like today producing your items without your bottling center in Hickman County?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That is a wonderful story to tell. So, in case we haven't already covered it, the actual name of the beverage company is Third Day Beverages. It's time for the truth, right? We believe it's time for the truth about what we consume, about everything that we have that does it. So, as we've already discussed, the whole idea of a bottled beverage company came from us having this spring, and it creeped up, and then we have it. Okay, so now we have a spring on our land that puts out 600 gallons of water. We want to bottle it. You figured that would be easy. The government's involved. So take it easy and throw it in the trash. So in order to bottle spring water, you actually have to have two things. One, you need a permit called an ARAP, Aquatic Resource Alteration Permit. Anytime you change the flow of water in this country of ours, they tell you need a permit to do it. So you get to pay an application fee, pay some engineers, show them what you would do. Then they get an agent to come out and look at it all and cross his arms and sit here and look at it. Well, the first day that guy came out, he decided to look around. He stroked his chin a little bit and he's like, "We got your plans. I figured I'd do a site visit now, nice and early. But the real reason I'm doing it is to also save you a bunch of heartache. I've been doing this job for 20 years. We probably get 30 applications a year from some farmer thinks he's going to turn his well or spring into the next $1 million business, and we haven't approved any of them. You should probably just quit." Did
We jokingly
he really
said,
just say that?
we jokingly said we should make t-shirts that say "you should just quit," because we got told that so many times over the course of building this business.
Yeah, I'd say in the first couple months, that was almost a weekly quote from somebody involved in your permitting process. You should probably just quit. It's really expensive. You need to get all these lab tests to get the source approved. That's really expensive. And you should probably just quit, is what they...
Are you willing to define what really expensive is for lab work?
Oh, sure. Ready? Their really expensive lab work was right about $3,000. Exactly.
Really expensive.
I was expecting like 300,000 when they first told me that, when they dropped that figure.
But that goes back to the limits that they live under.
Right.
They live under a limit that they think that's expensive. I mean,
yep.
Well, it is expensive, but it's not insurmountable.
No.
When we talk about living a life without limits, a $3,000 cap on tests to get commercial water is a limit in your head.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's just it, right? We're talking to people who are part of that system that we want to take a sledgehammer to. So I think their moral obligation was to crush that. As well, the process is not made easy on purpose. It's a very circular process. You need permission from this office to do it, but in order to do that, you need permission from their office. But they won't give it to you until you get permission from this office.
And they don't talk
And they
together,
don't
of
talk,
course.
and it's circular, and they just keep doing it. The process took almost 14 months just to get them to say your water's good, and you've paid us enough money every year to take your own water. Now, Nicole, if you had a chemical spill on your property that was dumping horrible chemicals that were buried in your land before you even knew about it, and it was dumping into a local creek, they would come after you and be like, you need to clean up your chemicals. But because it's spring water, it's our water. And even though it's on your land, it's our water because it leaves your water and flows down. So you need our permission to take it. So then they even regulate how much of it you can take at any given time to do that. So
Yeah.
that was a neat process to go through. If anybody out there is even considering it, please shoot us an email, do whatever, get us in touch with us. We will gladly give you some tips to get through that process and make it a little better, a little easier, and help you navigate through it, as well as tell you, of course, the general advice: just don't listen to a government worker when they tell you you should quit.
Yeah, I feel
That-
I feel a webinar series coming on.
there you go.
Your
But
water business webinar series.
so this was the big issue. And then you have the logistics, right? Our spring sits about 500 feet from the road. So now how do you get water from the spring and bring it to a place to bottle it? So you have two options there. You can build a facility right where your spring is and pipe it there, or you can fill trucks and then drive it to a bottling facility and go with that. So initially we had looked at a few different places in town where we were going to set up our bottling facility. We thought they were right. We just kept getting steered. One turned out to be too small. We would have outgrown it the first day. Another one turned out to have, what's that called? Asbestos and lead paint. Two things you don't want ever, let alone in a bottling facility. So now we're talking to a local guy, can't talk much about it, but we're doing a build out here instead. So in the meantime, we've had to find co-packers that would allow us to be able to use their facility, do it, negotiate prices with them and do it. There are a lot of food co-packers, there's a lot of coffee co-packers, there's a lot of beverage co-packers out there. So we were able to find some really great co-packers and utilize co-packers to do it for now. So that's how we can actually handle the logistics now. And
even that, excuse me, I'm getting over a sinus thing. Even that has come with expanding our limits and our freedom, because we got asked by several different companies if we would be co-packers, and that kind of broadened our horizons. We're like, oh yeah, we could do that too.
Right.
And so we're going to be adding that into what we do.
And I
By
think
co-packer, do they mean their product or private labeling your water?
no, they want co-packers to run their product.
Okay.
And so now we've talked to certain customers out there who are interested in carrying our water and hydration drinks in their stores and their national chains. And yes, by chance, would you also be willing to white label? And at first we were like, no. Then we thought about it from a business standpoint, and we were like, what if we ended up doing some private labeling for a company, a retailer, but we did it on a condition. The condition is whatever shelf space you give your private label, you have to give to Third Day Beverage. We'll go with equal shelf space and we'll co-pack your product or white label your product. And then we thought, so there's an option, and lo and behold, they love the option.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some great ways that it can serve us in both manners, right? The nice thing about white labeling or co-packing is it can level out your manufacturing process to create a much more level plan throughout the year. So it's nice.
So talk to me about what you know about the water, like the bottled water industry, and what's on the shelves right now. What's in those bottles?
You don't want to know.
So
because we're all stuck buying it sometimes, right? It's like,
18 months ago, we didn't know either, right? We've had to become water experts over the last 18 months. So first off, it always starts with the actual product, the water. And by law, you can have up to 500 parts per million of total dissolved solids inside of water that is bottled and then sold to something, right? So that's the legal limit where they give you, and it doesn't matter what what it is. You just, that's the maximum amount. Now they ban you obviously from having all these chemicals and anything else. In fact, that goes back to the initial source testing. If you're drinking bottled water that is purified water, what's the source? The source is actually the municipal water, and then they hyperfilter it and stick it in a bottle and sell it back to you. Where they're attempting to remove the majority of the chlorine, they're attempting to remove the majority of the fluoride, all the other things that you don't want to consume that go into your water. Well, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is it leaves you with H2O, and what we know now is H2 only, right? And so the problem is that's not what we were meant to drink. It's like drinking distilled water all the time. Water is a natural solvent, so it is going to want to dissolve minerals into the water and bond with them. So if I drink distilled water all the time, I'm pouring that into my body, but in the meantime, I'm trying to keep copper and zinc and selenium and magnesium and potassium in my body. They're all gone. Sodium, gone. The water will literally take it and flush it out. So a beverage, when we consume it, has natural amounts of minerals, trace minerals, salts, electrolytes, all those things. Well, that natural amount could be zero because we filtered it all out, or it could be a certain level that's equivalent to your body, or it can be one that's greater than what's in your body. So that's commonly referred to as, it's hypotonic, it's isotonic if it's identical to what's in your body, and it's hypertonic if it's super concentrated. So the goal when we drink water should always be looking for something that's at least isotonic. It has the same balance of those minerals that's inside your body so that we're not forcing too much into a cell and we're not extracting it from a cell when we drink that water. We want to leave our bodies with those things. That's where spring water becomes very important, because in order to qualify as spring water, when we bottle it, there's actually just a minimum carbon filtration and a UV treatment, and that's it. So all we're doing is killing anything that could be living in it with a UV filtration, running it once through a carbon filter, and then it's going straight into the bottles.
But I do have to say that we only do that because we are required to. We don't have to do that with our water.
Right. At the house, nothing here gets UV filtered or anything else. So it's just straight spring water. But as a requirement to sell it to people and packaging, right? We wouldn't want this sitting on a shelf somewhere for 6 or 8 months, because it will grow things. It's alive, right? If I didn't do that UV treatment to it and all those other things. So we have to do some things to make it a shelf stable product.
Yeah, and if for some reason a random thing got in there, then there's no chance that
Right.
could be in the bottle, that's how you don't get sued.
Yeah.
Nobody
Right.
wants to be sued. Yeah.
So, and now when you bring it back to the bottled water industry, what's in a bottle of water? So what are we starting with? Where's the source? That's going to be important. But even if the source was a spring, what was the lab report on that spring water? What's in it? What's their total dissolved solids? We've met some people out there who boast about it. Well, we only have single digit total dissolved solids. Our water's that pure. It's got 9 total dissolved solids in it. Well, you might as well drink distilled water if that's the case. You're actually telling us it's a hypotonic mixture, and it will strip the minerals you fought to put into your homegrown vegetables and consume, and now you're stripping them out of your body with the water you're drinking. Doesn't make sense. So once we establish that it's a good mineral-rich spring water, a bunch of trace elements in there, how is it packaged and what is it packaged in? And if you bottle your water outside the United States, you're not responsible for following United States guidelines. So when you buy stuff, one of the favorite brands, it rhymes with Fiji, that a lot of people out there will consume. Oh, it's this wonderful spring water from the Fiji Islands that comes down filtered through a volcano ash and lava rock, and we bottle it right at the source and ship it to you. So let me get this straight. You took water that came out of volcanoes, which are filled with toxic elements as well, too. And then you bottled it in a plastic bottle. You stuck that plastic bottle in a shipping container, let it sit on the open ocean for about 3 months on average, made its way to a seaport in Los Angeles, got trucked all across the country, sat in a warehouse somewhere else, and now we get to drink it? all the things that have been cooked in that bottle and leached in from that bottle into that, let alone to begin with from a bottling standards standpoint, because it's coming in from overseas. What about all the other ones? Voss coming from European glaciers and all these other waters. There are some good waters out there. What are they bottled in? What's their bottling process and how does that work? We have to get started somewhere. When we first launched Genesis Water, which is our flagship, it was in these 500 milliliter PET bottles. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, some health conscious company you are putting stuff in a plastic bottle.
Plastic doesn't break when you ship it.
But
Well, and everybody has to start somewhere.
you have to start somewhere. But so they said we should switch to cans. Have you ever seen what a can is lined with? It's
Plastic.
the softest possible plastic that you can imagine, and it actually disintegrates easier into the liquids that are inside of it. So it's actually worse for you. Well, what about glass? Retailers aren't a fan of glass. One stock agent drops one glass bottle, it's broken. There's glass everywhere. You've got all this cleanup. You can't have glass out at the pool. You can't have glass at the beach. You can't have glass on your bike. You can't have glass on the soccer field. You can't have it in the stadiums. All the places people are looking to drink water. One of the unique things we're doing on that side note this year is we're working with a couple different US packaging companies that make what you think is a plastic bottle, and it's not actually plastic. The bottle, the cap, and the label are all made from corn, and it's pretty wild stuff. So we're forwarding into some pretty futuristic packaging. We're also doing some stuff in aluminum cans and bottles for the states that have banned plastic, as long as you don't cover the plastic with aluminum. But anyway, yeah, that's their methodology.
Same with tin
So-
cans, by the way. That canned food on the shelf, also plastic lined.
Oh yeah, and they say that, but everybody's the enemy of the water industry because of the plastic bottles, not of all the other things. Now, if one of the things, hi, I like glass. If I can get glass,
Yeah.
and there are still a lot of companies that do glass. We're actually currently, when our build is allowing for a whole glass line to be run. And in the meantime, we've had problems finding co-packers that will run in glass. One of our co-packers just agreed to add a glass line so we can start doing glass too. So that's a good thing. Hey, Alabama.
You can't make everybody happy when you're starting a business.
Yeah. And that's just it, right? What do you offer and where do you go with it? And so
Yeah.
if you've got all these different products and all these different ideas that come down to it, when you look at the bottled water industry, so you first got to worry about what's going in the bottle itself. What are they doing to it for a process, and where was the source of that water? So what's left in that package? Then once it's left in the package, how is it packaged and how is it transported? Yes, ours is in PET containers, and for right now. And we transport ours only, and we have got this on picture and video and everything else. We only use refrigerated trucks. So we keep it stored at 55 degrees when we transfer it. We're not looking to cook anything or leach anything, and we know that we can slow that process down. On top of that, if everything's recyclable, now that it's up to the individual. I don't care what packaging we do. If you remember back in a long time ago, is get rid of paper packaging because it's killing trees. Well, don't use a paper cup. So we use plastic and then use styrofoam, right? There's always going to be an environmental problem if we don't learn how to deal with the end product that is the waste of whatever our packaging is. And so we have to change our habits there as a society. That's when the true change will happen. When we get into a bottled product of water and we look at what goes on with the water itself, where's the source? What was that source look like for its water report? How is it packaged? How is it shipped? And then how is that eventually sold to you and you, the consumer? How old is it? What's the timeline? Things like that. So we firmly believe that our water, we've looked at reports on a lot of springs. We love ours. It's great. Yes, that sounds biased because it's our spring and our company. But before it was our company, again, people would fill up 5-gallon jugs from our faucets. And
Water
do
is
it.
part of your bond with your land. I really think as we get into homesteading, if you have a water source, like I have a water source here, you just, even if it's not, my mineral count is not exactly the same as yours, what happens as you're consuming it is you sort of develop the symbiosis with the water and the plants you're growing with that water, and it comes into a balance. And when you throw the balance off by doing something like, oh, I don't know, putting a water softener in because your appliances are getting ruined, you throw that out of whack. I did that here, And I took my cold water off the water softener so I could get all the minerals in the water because it strips all the minerals. It took me 2 weeks to get sick when I made that one change. And then I was like, well, really, I'm just trying to keep the dishwasher around longer. So,
Right.
and I don't drink hot water out of the tap. So I think, people underestimate how important those micronutrients being naturally in the water really is, and how much we do develop that symbiosis with our local area.
Yeah. And I think that's the beautiful part about how the water itself, when it comes out of the ground wherever your area is, probably has more of what you need in it. So maybe for the people in Fiji or in Norway, that's the water that their body needs based on what their diet is. And that's how the earth was designed by its creator. So if you look at us in the United States here, what are we drinking, especially here in the Southeast or in Tennessee? We should be looking more at Tennessee Springs and Tennessee spring water. It's got the trace minerals that match what our environment is trying to put back in us all the time.
Yeah. I think it's just interesting as I've gotten more into homesteading, how that design that's hyper local is amazing. It's amazing that the microbiology in the soil is mining the nutrients that need to go in the vegetables that's supported by the water that comes out of the ground that then makes us healthy or not healthy. Is amazing. And how hard that, like, how out of balance that's gotten through our mineral stripping practices of growing food.
Yeah. And so I think that's one of the many things where it comes back to some of the Joel Salatin and stuff that we all heard, right? How do we do regenerative everything? And it all comes down, like you said, if water is our connection to the land, why are we stopping that or interrupting that symbiosis there when we go to put water into our bodies?
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
So were there any other things from your homestead that at one point you thought, hey, I could monetize this? And did you try any other revenue sources before you went into the water? And how did that go?
Well, yes and no, but we tried them with the idea of monetizing them just to hit net zero, just to make our farm free food for us. So we did it, of course, with our eggs. We've done it with chickens. We've done it with beef. We've done it with cows. We've done it with milk, from dairy. So things like that. We've tried it with all of that. And we still overproduce on our farm. We want to make sure that we have what we need. And then we have a bit of a surplus because we don't want a small, as you know, homesteading crisis to interrupt. Now we have to go buy commercial beef or something else. That would be ridiculous. We were talking before we got started about eggs. Our egg production this year is more. We are freeze drying eggs. We are hard boiling eggs. We eat egg salad, and we sell eggs. We get, like, at this point, if you come over my house and you're not leaving without eggs. Like this. Yep, you better lock your car doors when you park in our driveway because your trunk is going to be filled with eggs, and we won't even tell you.
Eggs for us are like zucchini for gardeners.
That's actually really funny,
2 months a year,
especially this year with the egg crisis.
Yeah, and that's what everybody's going on. We're like, man, we thought about posting. Hey, we're looking for a new Suburban. Our family's growing. We need a big 8-passenger vehicle. We'll trade a dozen eggs. Don't try and lowball us. We know what we have.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would have been funny. So you tried those things, but it wasn't really the path forward towards having a revenue stream that sustains you was not part of that message at the time.
No, it wasn't. But it's always been a message more about independence rather than monetization of stuff. Again, not yet realizing that the two were correlated. When Tina said we built our house out here, we originally bought 2 tracts of land that are next to each other and totaled 40 acres. We built our house and we built it off grid. So people think we live like Grizzly Adams. They picture some cabin when you tell them that, like, oh, we bought 40 acres of wooded land. We built our house. It's off grid. They're picturing me dragging this axe and, today's kill, wearing bear skins or something else. And it's not like that. We built a 6,000 square foot, 8-bedroom, 5.5 bath house on this piece of land, and it's wonderful. We love the house,
and we did that because we wanted our in-laws to. Chris's parents, they're like my parents too. I hesitate to call them in-laws because yuck. But anyway, they are precious to us, and they are of an age where they're going to need care, and we want to be able to provide that for them. And so we built our house on a walkout basement, and instead of, it doesn't even look like a basement, it looks like another level of the house. And so we did that on purpose. There's another master, there's another kitchen, she has her own laundry room, so that when she comes here to visit, she has what she needs. And then when they come here to live, they're all on one level. We can come down to take care of them, we can be here for them as added support. And we wanted to grow our family, which, because of what we're doing, we're actually getting the opportunity to do. And we're adopting, by the way.
I was
And
going to
so-
ask, because you said our family is growing. I'm like, oh, are you adopting a child?
We are adopting 5 children.
5
a sibling
children?
group of 5.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
we're
so
so
cool.
excited.
Tell me
We're
about
so
that, because
excited.
this is building the life you choose, right? This is how
It
you
is.
build a life without limits, and
Yeah.
you're able to provide a home for children who need a home.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chris and I have always wanted a big family, and we, he carried a radioactive radio pack on his back in the Army. And so there were some issues, and we just never, we had miscarriages and went through fertility and all that stuff, and it just never worked. And so our 12-year-old daughter is adopted. Most people don't realize that, because she looks so much like Chris, and she acts.
does.
She
100% acts
it's
like me
so
too.
funny.
It's wild.
She's totally from God. She's a gift from God. And so we're just thrilled, because we got matched up with this sibling group of 5 kids, and it's just answer prayer after answer prayer. And so, yeah, we're super excited.
We are. Yep. And so that's a couple weeks away is all, till they come home. So we're pretty excited in that. But again, it's what allowed us to do it. So when we built this, the freedom that you can build by a life you design, you realize that you just have to be willing to pay the price for that freedom, right? And it's harder the more entrenched you are. So it is things like, first you're going to have to maybe consolidate or drive a lesser car or do any of those things. Tag story, you're familiar with that, and how when you break that, but then you can create an independence that will actually lap the nuggets they used to give you as a slave. No matter what kind of slave you were, you get much better ones when you're independent and free. So we built this house. It's off-grid solar, it's battery shed, and we designed the system. And so that was another thing we tried to monetize at one point, was just doing consulting for people who were looking to build off-grid homes with their solar designs. Since then, that's actually turned into more of a charity. Just how can we increase the community through our Hickman County Homestead community? We've been able to do that and help other families design and build their off-grid solar systems, create more independence. And freedom is contagious, and independence is along with it too, I think. So the more of us that we free our neighbors by physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, all of those things, we will exist in a much better place.
Yeah, and when you have that strong community that you've built around you, the financial stuff, when the hard times come, isn't as hard. I think that's something we don't talk about that either. It's like, you don't do community so that happens, but that does happen when you build community, because you end up having access to things that you may not find by yourself. Correct. I don't know that we're meant to be by ourselves. We're
not meant to be by ourselves, definitely. And I think that's the beautiful part. You find that just when those times get hard for everybody, we're all a little bit stronger. When they get hard for an individual, it's not hard. Like when these storms came through recently, and it's trashed people's fences or down trees on things or whatever. The fact that we're all a community and come together, and we have the means and resources to be charitable to one another. Right? We wouldn't have that if we were all just stuck in slavery and just living off the nuggets that we had.
Yeah, something I've thought would be fun for our community, just statewide or regionally, is when a new homesteader moves here, because a lot of that has happened. We just give them a homesteader starter pack of, like, here's some of our canned goods, here's some grain stores, because when you move, it's hard to move all that stuff.
Yeah.
But if you get started with a base level of some supplies, I think that means they don't have to exist off Walmart for the first year while they're building everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is
that
cool.
is an awesome idea.
How do you buy your water? Where do I buy your water? How does that happen?
Thank you. So, we've got the Genesis water, and coming out this week are the Lion hydration drinks.
And we have lime, lemon lime with pineapple, mixed berry, and watermelon are the 4 flavors that we're coming out with first. We'll be adding to that later on, but we just decided to start with 4 to get started.
Yep.
Smart.
And so this is no junk, nada, nope, not here. You want to hear the ingredients on this? This is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Genesis spring water, natural flavor, really like naturally extracted from the fruit. We pay a ton for our flavoring and we get it as a natural fruit extract. Citric acid, pink Himalayan salt, monk fruit extract, potassium chloride, magnesium citrate. We added those for the electrolytes, B6 and B12. That's it. One of our persons that works on our marketing team is a type 1 diabetic and she's in her mid 30s. And she's psyched because she's like, finally a hydration drink that I can have, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yep, there it is. And so in fact, you'll love this, Nicole. It says here on every bottle, in a world of sheep, be a lion. Scan here to join the fight.
Absolutely. I'm all about sheep right now.
That's
so
it.
where do we buy it? Do we buy it at the store locally, or how does that work?
So we just made it to the retail end in January through now. We've met with a bunch of retail buyers. Currently, we're in some of the locals. The bigger the machine is, the harder it is to penetrate the machine and the slower it moves to adapting your product.
They only buy at certain times of the year. They have this all worked out. And so we sat with 30 different companies at a conference that we went to in Chicago. 28 of those companies want to excuse me, move forward with us, which is a huge blessing. But it takes time because like I'm not going to say their names, but some of them only purchase in June. Some of them only purchase in January. So we're in the process of working with several of those companies and working out the details and all those.
So as soon as those they'll be available on our website, which is 3dbev.com.
But since you travel out this way anyway, to get your feed, it is available in Spence Family Fitness.
Yep.
It's available at David's Farm Store, which is in Centerville. It's available at the local place. It's available at Maribel's.
Yep. And that's it for now. We got the local grocers that are picking us up.
Mhm.
And we got a couple other gyms that are picking us up. But that's where it is for right now today. If you wanted to buy it, you're coming to Hickman County if you want to buy it, really, right now today, if you want to buy it in person, or you're ordering it from and having it shipped.
And we have a lot of people that ask if they can buy it directly from us, and we decided not to do that because of sales tax issues. It's better to just wholesale it and let the retailers deal with it.
So what we tell people is go to 3dbev.com. That's our website for Third Day Beverages. Look there and you will see a block on there for retailers to click. Go to your retailer, especially if it's a local one where you like shopping. Just say, hey, have you thought about doing this? One of the things that we've done, obviously we have to make a profit and there's a business structure, but all of the local Tennessee area places that are the smaller businesses, we're always giving them the greatest tier in pricing because we know it. That's what we came from too, right? So we're not going to punish you because you're a small business trying to get going. In fact, the opposite. We'll put you in the best seat in the house. So go to your local grocers and ask them if they carry Genesis, or ask them if they'll carry Lion. Tell them they should. And if you send them to 3D Bev, there's a little link there for a retailer to fill out. We'll go ahead and we'll get it right to them. So you can have it this week in your local store that you love shopping from.
Right. So my local gas station in Liberty needs to do that. I'll totally hit them up about that. They have all sorts of local products. So
Is that the one out there next to SRE? Or
no, I'm 3 hours away from you, so I'm closer to Cookeville. But we have a little gas station in a town called Liberty where everybody goes who is local, and they have like the local jerky producer and typical concession sort of thing. But they might be interested, and that's what, if you're hearing this, guys, and you're like, wow, that'd be cool to have in my area. It will not hurt Chris and Tina at all if you go in and start saying, hey, there's this really great water I just found. They're local to Tennessee. You can have them in your stores. This is where you go. Right?
That'd be awesome.
That's a way you can help them build this business, because I know, and you guys, I'm sure it's a lot of heavy lift right now in their business cycle, where they've got to close these deals. They've got to wait up to a year for major retailers to carry it, because that whole system is a system. But the little local guys can make a decision tomorrow.
Right. And that's actually been a huge blessing so far. Just having the little local guys is enough to sustain, and it's good. On top of that, it's a proof of concept. What we find in the local guys is people really like the product. You know, there's that first moment of truth when you see the bottle and you're like, "Ooh, wow, what is that?" And then you realize what it's all about. Okay, that's great. But if you open the bottle and you drink from it and it's nothing special, then you probably won't buy another one. We found that people are repurchasing it more than they're just purchasing it once. So,
You know, while we're here, I'd love to give a shout out to David's Farm Store too, because it is um, you might have to help me, but they carry like all kinds of clean foods. He brings in flour and rolled oats and beans and dried beans and all these products that people that understand the purpose of what we're doing want anyway. So it might be worth your time to drive
yeah.
there to
You can
pick
go
up
online
water.
and check them out. And then I
Oh,
think
yeah,
he
you
does a
can go
lot of
online.
pickups.
He's
from
on
there.
he's on Facebook.
But that,
Yeah.
when we look at each other as retailers, that's what we can do, right? We can help one another out as with our products. So if you ever, in that same line, if you take your coffee business and you would say, you know what, maybe I love making coffee for people, but you know what else I like? I like having a cold brew in a cooler. But you don't want to branch out in the ready to drink coffee business. Maybe we have a holler roast where it's a bottled ready to drink iced coffee, and now it's holler roast and third day beverages working together and make another
No, I mean,
product
I
and
would
bring
love to
something else.
talk to you about that because I
Cool.
100% don't want to manufacture that myself.
No. Or deal with all the other things, right? Now you've got to go and you got to sell bottled drink as a new company to somebody instead of adding it as a product line. We've got a few more appointments coming up in this July with some more big retailers. So we're very close on the big market, and it's going to be when it explodes. We've often said that this is it's wild to watch how God's been paving this road, because when it explodes, we have to have the infrastructure in place to be able to handle it. And that's been our hard one so far, is how do we have enough infrastructure if one of these major retailers with 2,500 stores across the nation says, I'll take a pallet for each store every month. Okay, how do we handle that kind of capacity and where do we go? And right now, we've got some great co-packers that have assured us that we can handle that on the forecasting. But also through that, we've got some great local option and we can get built up really quick. So within 6 months, we can do all of that in-house right here in Hickman County.
Yeah, and that's great that that's all coming together, and I'm excited for Hickman County too because they definitely could use some influx of industry there that's more local and sustainable.
And that's a hill that we decided we would die on. We want to keep it here in Hickman County.
Yeah, we've had numerous options where we could have taken it to a county or two next door. Nothing wrong with those. But this is home. This is where we are. This is our community. These are our neighbors. This is our water. And I think there's something really neat to that about the local residents too. When you have a business in Hickman County that exports something from Hickman County, like the water, that creates an opportunity economically from as we push that water outside of the county to generate revenue for the county that came from outside. So you don't have to bring a tourist here to bring in revenue dollars.
Have you connected with Pick Tennessee Products?
No. We should.
That might be worth it. I was just at I just had a free booth at something they did, and they do a store at the state fair for Tennessee-based products. So, and I think they're going to be emailing about how to do that. But they've been helpful for raising awareness for local products in Tennessee, and I think they're better at connecting people with larger like commercial grocers, which is not my goal with Holler Roast on the coffee side, but it's hard to be fresh and in a grocery store.
Right. Yeah.
As you probably know, So water has a longer shelf life than coffee beans. I'll just say that, like way longer. So anyway, so what advice do you have for people who want to live a life without limits, build freedom into their life, who are just sort of struggling with what to do or where to start?
Wow. That's probably the hardest struggle, right? First, you have to figure out what to do or where to start. But I think my advice to them would be like mine and Tina's. Get together, talk, figure it out. Don't be afraid to dream, right? Years of living in that cage of society that we've lived in has almost beat the dream out of you as an adult. Undo that. Figure out what your eventual thing is, but then find the motivation to want to do it.
And don't quit.
And don't quit. Don't believe the state worker. But I think it's when you really find an outlet for what it is you believe, everything else will come naturally. We are behind such a mission in our family to improve our lives, the lives of people around us, our health, our food supply, all of that. All this does is serve as evidence to that. It was a no-brainer, which is also why if tomorrow we wanted to transition to the egg business, it would fit as long as the type of eggs we wanted to produce matched that. So I think and then as homesteaders, be resourceful, figure it out. Again, we weren't trying to follow the cookie cutter mold for our income. We decided, well, we could raise, like you said, you could raise 1,000 sheep so that you can make a living, or what else do you have? And if there are a lot of homesteaders I know that do have water sources, maybe consider that. Maybe get them tested. This is a big enough business. There's room for everybody at this table.
Yeah.
There it is. If this is something you've thought about, please.
If you go out today to a grocery store and let's just say Walmart. You go to Walmart and you walk down the water aisle, you are going to find empty spaces. There's not enough water on the shelves for people. It's always Publix. They always have empty spaces on their shelves.
We were getting calls post-hurricane last year when the 2 hurricanes came through back to back. And at one point they were willing to buy 30 tractor trailer loads of water a day because it did not exist in the United States. Nobody could find it. So that's another thing that coming from a background of disaster relief and military care and realizing that when you need water, you need water. It's not the time. That's something that another thing that just serves as what we do. Of our production, we're keeping X amount warehoused, and we do FIFO with that, right? First in, first out, but always keep X amount warehoused so we can respond to a disaster and just ship them water.
Or drive them water.
It's like the pantry method, right?
Yeah. And it has to be that way, right? If we care about the people that we're here to serve and make healthy, it's people ask us all the time about the name Third Day Beverages. Where does that come from? And when we first dreamt up the idea, Third Day Beverages was kind of a byproduct of going, well, in the book Genesis, all the water was gathered into one place on the 3rd day. Jesus, or the living water, rose again on the 3rd day. You can live 30 days without food and 3 days without water. So drink our water like it's the 3rd day, right? That's just where it came to be. And Genesis is how water should be. It's how it was in the beginning. That's why we went with the name Genesis for the pure line of Genesis. It's just in fact, howwatershouldbe.com happens to be the website for Genesis. So, because that's how water should be. Y'all, I feel like Joel Salatin should be saying that. It's y'all, it's how it should be.
Yeah.
Like you feel like you have to slap yourself in the head for even saying
how did we get so far away from that?
Right. It's water. How do we mess water up so bad?
Yeah. Because we're humans, we mess everything up so bad.
And that's
we got to get involved like we know something.
And that's just it, right? When we look at our water, why is it how water should be? We've already explained the minimal processing. At what point do you decide, you know what? I know how God made water, but I have a better idea. What if we took all the water, stripped everything down out of it, then we tried to add something back to it to try and make it like it was in the beginning? Wouldn't that be a good idea?
Yeah.
When is that product ever going to be better, and how is that ever going to work out economically? It's not. But America's sick of that. They're waking up. They're going, hey, it's time for the truth about all of our food, right? I don't want any red dye 40 in my cheer wine. I don't want this, that, or the other. I don't want those chemicals. We don't have to have them. When you look at a bottle of Lion, you know what color it will be when you look at the bottom? Clear. Because there's nothing in it. We didn't even dye it with, let's dye it with carrot juice or something else. So why?
You put a green label on it so it would be the color people expect.
It's a mental thing.
It's a mental thing.
Yeah.
So when you have that, that's all the point behind any of this is to keep it the way God intended it to be. You don't have to go ahead and re-engineer something to make it better when it was created perfectly.
And I wanted to address forgive me, I don't know who it was that said it, but somebody mentioned distilleries. We are talking to distilleries all over Tennessee.
Yes. And a large part of the problem there is distilleries tend to bottle things that are already sterile because they contain alcohol. So most of their bottling facilities aren't equipped to rinse and wash and sterilize the bottles and caps prior to the bottling process. So, but It's been an experience. So again, if what can we do to inspire people or to talk to them about where it is they want to start? It all starts with making a decision that you're done living as a slave and you want freedom and you're willing to pay for it with whatever the cost is.
And it takes time and keeping that mindset to get there, because Chris is the dreamer and I'm the realist. And what I have learned about me is I was stuck in that mindset for so long. Even now today, there are things that come up and I'm like, whoa, that's the slave mentality. That's, you know, the way I was taught by the world for so long. And he is, I'm so sorry about my voice. He
That's
has
okay, don't
really
worry about
helped
it.
me, and he's still helping me to this very day to come out of all that, because it was not as big of a mental block for him as it is for me.
Yeah, when you
No.
run into a wall in your business, the question isn't, oh, I guess I got to give up. It's how can I get past this?
With a sledgehammer.
Yeah, it's demo team
Well, yeah,
up,
sledgehammer,
right? When you hit a
whatever it
wall.
takes, walk around it, climb over it, dig under it. Like, what am I going to do
Yeah.
next?
Yeah.
Blow it up and sell the pieces as souvenirs.
Yeah.
Sounds like the Berlin Wall.
That's
There
right.
you go.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Well,
that's just
before we wrap up, how do people just remind them again how to connect with you, how to find your water and your farm and all of those things?
So, yeah, our homestead is Honeysuckle Farm, but our water is Genesis Water. You can go to howwatershouldbe.com and look that up. You can go to our Lion webpage, which is drinkliondrink.com. And you can go to Third Day Beverages website, which is 3dbev.com, and you can look that up. Any of those places, too, there's a spot where you can contact us. Please drop us an email if you have a question. If you got specific questions or ideas, we'd love to hear it. If there's anything we can ever do to help any of you out or to give you hopefully some of the roadmap work, if you're getting involved in your business or doing whatever it is that you're trying to do, if there's anything we can do to help, that's what we're all here for.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure those links are in the show notes as well. Thanks for being on the show today, guys.
Thank you, Nicole.
All right, everybody, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Head over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out about that. Our member webinar in May is all about canning. Make it a great week.